basis for effective publicity, you are joking. Next slide, please. All right, so the way forward, because 3 keynotes have come before my own, I'm trying to be fast. The way forward. We don't need to say this much. It's clear that the media needs to reestablish itself. The media needs to reestablish itself. There is no basis for Nigeria having a docile media, because we did not inherit docile media from our predecessors. It was the Nigerian media that fought for independence. It was Nigerian media that fought the military. Some of you here are still remembering the publications of the gold magazines, the Newswatch, Tell. We remember them. They went into guerrilla journalism and gave sleepless nights to the military. The same with the journalists of old during the colonial era. Today, the journalists are so scared about what will happen and what will not happen. There is no profession that does not have its own risk. The journalist must reestablish itself. It must recognize that it is the custodian of the famous agenda setting theory. Those who are not familiar with the academics may not know the full details. But what it entails is, in brief, is that it is the media that shows to the public what it should be interested in. And how do they do it? By the things they publish. In Nigeria, it is the politicians that are in charge of agenda setting. In other parts of the world, agenda setting is done by the media. It is what the media wants people to do that they should be doing by virtue of what the media publishes. The media must uphold its ethical values. If you begin to look for materialism, you are not likely to be respected. So, the media must discard its subsisting pedestrian template, where it behaves like a houseboy. Before you are known as a great man in the media, you probably would have spent 40-something years. Whereas in other professions, after 10 years, you are a big man. In the media, you need 40 years to become a big man. And how should we then operate? The media should use its massive organs of communication to hold all authorities answerable to the people. It's a mandate given by the Constitution, even though there is no freedom following it. The journalists can use the opportunity of being given an assignment to take it to its logical conclusion. Next slide, please. The push factor. I'm trying to talk about how the media should go ahead. What should we do? How should we push the narrative? First, let us change this old method of just doing information. Let us also do education. If you are listening to a bulletin, especially on radio or TV, you may never get the real essence of a story because of the shortness and the speed with which it was read. There is hardly no background information that tells people what the story is all about. In other words, the journalist who wants to brief the nation on events that are happening should ask himself, with this write-up, will the nation understand the message? If the nation will not understand the message, then something is basically wrong. What I am saying is that journalists should recognize that effective communication presupposes a feedback mechanism. How are people saying this? That does not happen in our system. We need to do follow-up. Follow-up is hardly done. You just see a story. First day. That's the end of that story. We don't get to know the progress. We don't get to know what happened after. We don't get to see whether changes have been made. The minister came here today and told us about the young children were arrested. And then the follow-up. In another part of the world, they will continue to talk about those children until they are released. The media will continue to talk about those children until they are released. That is what is called the principle of force multiplication. You repeat the same thing over and over again until it sticks. Until those who should take action recognize that you are talking. And they say, okay, because of this, let us go and do something. So when they say a journalist has been arrested, and you just announce it, and then you give 24 hours notice or ultimatum, and that's the end, something is wrong. The media must sit back and help itself and help society. Some time ago, I think a year or two ago, the Nigerian Guild of Editors went to Wiri to hold a conference. They held a conference, we watched them. They were merrymaking. They went for cocktail. They went for that. They came back. I wrote a letter to them that I watched you on cocktail and dinner with His Excellency the Governor of Imo State. But please, you didn't remember to ask him what happened to the radio journalist he detained 2 weeks before you went. And this is the issue about what we do to ourselves. What we do to ourselves. This is the issue. And I think that if we can do a better job, the NUJ, the NGE, and all the other bodies that have been named here today as being media bodies, have a responsibility. Many years ago, as a young journalist, I remember that the military shaved the hair of a journalist in Rivers State. I'm sure some of you are people will remember, Amakri. Every newspaper in this country had a small earpiece on front page. What did Amakri do? The government had to call us to a meeting to say, we have released him. We have penalized the people who did it just because of the subsisting references. What did Amakri do? Amakri was a journalist who was manhandled, and fellow journalists took up the case and followed it up. It is not enough for us to take the position of president of NUJ or president of Nigerian Guild of Editors. What do you do to upgrade the profession? What do you do to ensure that those who are there are doing fine? When people are arrested, you don't do anything about it. You see journalists, they carried all their facilities and go to an event. They say, sorry, journalists are not, we don't want you. Today is closed session. Please stay out. And they lock the door. And the journalists stay out. At the end of the day, journalists will now tell us what those people did. People drove you away from their event. You are publicizing that event from which you were driven away. They are the ones directing you. They are the ones telling you what is the news angle. They are the ones telling you what is the subject and the object of news. And the one telling you which angle to take. And you are the journalist who was sent there. You don't even recognize that going to an event, for those of us who are old journalists, and somebody locked the door and say you are sent away, that is the news. It is not what you didn't see that is the news. So if you are an editor, you didn't go there. When the man comes back, you should ask him what happened there. So, sir, they locked us out. They said, so go and write it. That's the news. I remember when there was a plane crash in Port Harcourt. I don't remember which of them. I think it was one carrying students. And then they seized our camera that we came to the airport and that we were filming and that nobody gave us permission. So we started putting it on every news item that they seized our camera. They said, President called me. What is this you are doing? I said, they seized our camera, sir. Go and give them their cameras. You those stupid people. Don't you know that useless people? Go and give them their camera. And we collected our camera. If we did not continue to show it, we will not collect that camera. Nobody will be dealt with. Nobody will be penalized. So we must try as much as possible